Shan and Tam fam, welcome to the Real Talk podcast. On this podcast, we talk about real issues. We talk about parenting, love, family, friendships, and everything in between.
It is our hope that you will journey with us through some critical conversations. We would like for you to drop us a comment, to share the conversation, and to let us know what you would like to see us talk about on Real Talk.
Shan and Tam fam, welcome back. Welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Shan and Tam. So today, fam, we are going to be revisiting a topic that we talked about a couple weeks ago, and because it's generated quite a bit of discussion in terms of our listeners and getting messages and so on, we decided that aside from having us give our spin on the topic of finances and how we're managing in this financial crunch, we decided to go ahead and get an expert. So hopefully our guest today will be able to offer you some even more sage advice in this area, and you'll be able to garner some information and possibly another resource in the form of our guest to help you through this period. So with us today, we have Cedric Cousins. He is an original, our type of Smadishan, Yardie, right?
Yeah,
A real Jamaican. And Cedric is a project manager by profession before he came to Canada. And since having moved to Canada, he's become a licensed financial professional, a loving husband, and a proud, he calls himself a financial crusader. So you know
wow.
he's on a mission. And trust me, I've had the benefit of, having dealt with Cedric and his wife, who I'm sure he'll tell you about, who's a part of his business. And he really is a wealth of knowledge and a sound resource for some great financial help. So Cedric, welcome to Real Talk. And we're hoping that we will have some real talk with you today and you'll be able to share some tidbits with our listeners. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So we are just going to jump right into it. So I know you did listen to our episode when we talked about the finances and how we're, us just practically regular people. We're just trying to manage in this time. And I wanted to start out the discussion with you on the topic of budgeting, if we can start there, because I know that's something that Shan and I talked about. I personally have done it from years. Shan talks about, doing it, but I wanted to hear from your perspective as a financial advisor. What are your thoughts around that? What are some of the things that people should be doing or in that process, and how do they go about it?
Okay, very good question. So budgeting is actually very, very important in financial planning, right? One of the things with budgeting is that it gives you a guide as to what you spend. And then if you should track your past spending, it also helps you to identify where it is that you're spending and where it is that you're overspending. Yeah. Now the great things with a lot of credit cards these days and such, rather than you going in and trying to find everything, some of the credit card companies these days, they're actually able to pull up to show you how much you spent on food, how much you spent at a bar, how much you spent in respective areas, and that's pretty great. The next thing in line with budgeting is that oftentimes, we tend to not focus on the minor things, right? So you stop and you pick up a French vanilla and it only costs $2 or $2.50. You're like, okay, fine, I do not need to account for that. But then by the end of the month, you realize that you spent $150 here or $120 here. Exactly. And it all adds up.
Right.
So budgeting is very important. And essentially what we should aim to do is to set a budget every month, allocate what the spend will be for whatever area. And at the end of the day, if it's not in the budget, you should not be spending in that area on a monthly basis. What you can do to give yourself a little leeway is within that budget, let it be realistic, not too stringent to the point where, okay, it's on paper, it looks good, it's stringent, but you really cannot stick to it. So let it be realistic and have something in there for miscellaneous expenses because
Right.
things will happen and things will pop up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, that's a good point, Cedric. And I like what you said even about, you don't put no money for the small things, right? Like the coffee and everything. And at the
Yeah.
end of the month, you realize how much money you spend. And one of the things when you even spoke about budgets, something that I thought about that Tam and I spoke about the last time we spoke about this topic was paying yourself first when you get paid. Right. And right now, things are so tough. Things are so tight. People are living from paycheck to paycheck. How do you suggest, or what are your recommendations in terms of saving on such a tight budget? Because as you see, groceries so expensive, the gas prices have gone up, rent and mortgage is so expensive. What would you say to support people, or what advice would you give people in terms of saving in this market?
Okay. First thing is that saving is a habit. That's what it is. Saving is a habit. Some people want to get fit. They get up and they go to the gym religiously. For some people, going to the gym, it's a lifestyle. For some, you have to force yourself. You do it for a week and then you fall off. Saving is no different. It's a habit. It's a routine. In listening to your podcast, the previous episode, I remember you mentioning that you should try to do even if it's not much. And I agree with you 100% because that's where you build the quote unquote muscle memory as it relates to saving. All right. Now, typically, this is what I find. And if you look, think about your salary and you talk about paying yourself first. Here is the problem. Typically, what people do is that they save what is left after they spend.
Yeah.
And that's a wrong approach. Ideally, you should be spending what is left after you save.
Via,
Oh,
I'm telling you, I so believe that. And I think
so save first and then spend from what you have left.
Indeed,
to stick up
100%.
in there, because the saving should be built into the budget, I feel, as one of those essential expenses, quote unquote.
Exactly. Exactly, 100%. It should be built in, and then everybody needs to have a reality check. A lot of it comes to you, personal responsibility. More of us need to take personal responsibility. The fact is, yes, things are tight. I get it. It's tight with everybody. I deal with these clients every single day. But I will tell you this. This is my own personal experience. Majority of the clients that I sit with, when I sit and I do their budget, because that is something I do with every single client, by the way, right? We complete a budget spreadsheet. And here's the thing. When I go through that spreadsheet and we see areas that money is being spent, oftentimes, so many times, majority of the times, there are areas where money, I want to say, is being wasted, or let's say it could be better allocated.
Right.
Here's the thing. Oftentimes, they themselves don't realize.
Yeah.
They don't realize that, oh my goodness, I'm spending here, I'm spending there. I could literally be cutting back $253, $500 every single month. That money, a significant portion of it could be going into saving and investing.
Yeah.
I feel like I know for years prior to me getting that, and I think it was born out of having a particular goal in mind, why like my
Mm-hmm.
husband and I developed certain patterns in terms of the budgeting and really penciling it out. And I was telling Shanique down to the little things like the gifts that you're gonna spend on for birthday parties and stuff, because I have my little envelopes when I put those monies in and so on. I think what holds us back sometimes is really the fear of what is, like the truth, because it's not
Mm-hmm.
easy for you to really, you talked about taking accountability. It's really not easy for us to really see it on paper, and I don't know if you experience this with your clients, that when
Yeah,
you
it's
literally
frightening.
put it down and pencil it out and you actually see where you're um, uh, directing this money, that
Mm-hmm.
you have to really take some ownership of that. And like you said, a lot of times it could be better directed someplace else, or it's being wasted.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to swallow. It's not an easy pill to swallow. I don't know if you'd agree.
Mm-hmm.
And that is sometimes what holds us in the space of not being able to move forward
Mm-hmm.
in terms of doing it better.
Yeah, and I think people are
Well,
embarrassed too, right? I think a
Yeah.
lot of people are embarrassed too to talk about their finances,
Hmm.
to talk about how much debt you might have, or you're not having enough income. It's a sensitive topic, and I think
Right.
a lot of people may be embarrassed as well too. I'm not sure if you've encountered that, Cedric.
daily, multiple times
Okay.
daily,
Okay.
multiple times daily. Because again, what you find is that, like you said, people are literally embarrassed about how much they make or how much debt they have or stuff like that. So opening up your finances, again, like I said, it's very sensitive. Um, to the point though that Tam made as it relates to though taking accountability. Something that I do with my clients, we're all Jamaicans here, and I don't know what your audience is like, but back home we have a saying, when trouble take you, pitney shot fit you, right? Now,
It's the same way,
Yes.
for
so
those
I
good.
know.
let's translate it for the
Squeeze
for some
into
of the
it.
listeners, Cedric.
So simply put, when you are in a position where your back is against the wall, you
Mhm,
will achieve the unachievable, right?
mhm.
You will
Yeah.
find a way to make it work.
Real
If
talk.
tomorrow, listen, I love ice cream.
Hmm.
It's one of my weaknesses. No, like really.
That's why you
It's
and I
one
What?
of
get the.
You and
That's why
Tam a friend.
That's why me know said there was
She love
another reason
ice
why me
cream
like
bad.
it. So
it's one of my
my
weaknesses,
favorite
right?
Oh
thing.
man.
And no matter what, I, I,
Hmm.
I I just love some good ice cream. But if tomorrow a doctor should say to me that your life depends on you having no more ice cream, what would I do?
Yeah, for
Yeah, you'd have
real.
to stop eating
So,
the ice cream. Real
Hmm.
talk.
exactly. One of the things I do with my clients is when I sit with them, I show them what the real picture is. For example, I want to find out, okay, at what age do you want to retire?
Okay.
By the way, let me just have a plug in here and share something with your audience. Statistics Canada did a survey. 91% of Canadians will not be able to retire when they want to. So
No,
let
sir.
that sink in. 91%. So here's a conversation that I have with my clients. Okay, ideally, at what age would you want to retire? That's number one. Number two, how old are you now?
Mm.
So now I'm able to calculate the time we have between now and retirement.
All right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the average life expectancy, I'm on with two females. The average life expectancy for females in Canada is age 85. So
Hmm.
for the
Mm.
individual who is going to say to me, I'm going to retire at 65, the next thing I want to know is what type of lifestyle do you want to live in retirement? How
Right.
much do you want to be
Mm-hmm.
earning? What do you want to be doing? Okay, if you retire at 65, you live to 85, that's 20 years in retirement. You need money to bring you through those 20 years. Now, here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to calculate. I'm going to estimate what inflation is going to be. I'm going to look at the time that we have to save and invest between now and 65. I'm going to have a projected growth rate of that investment. Literally, I'm going to now calculate and tell you this is how much we need to save every single month between now and retirement to hit your goal.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
when
Okay.
they see what that number looks like,
Yes.
listen, we need to pull up our socks. We need to get things done.
And that's
Yeah. And the
usually when,
savings.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead, Tam.
No, I'm saying that's usually now when you can really put the like you'd say, pedal to the metal and
Yes.
people, sink in to doing what they need to do to achieve those
To get
goals,
that
right?
done. Yeah.
Indeed,
And that
because
savings. Go ahead, Cedric. Yes.
no, it's just my duty
Okay.
to show them this. I'm obligated. Here's the thing. I have to put myself in a position to realize that you need serious help, even when you don't realize it yourself.
Okay.
So yeah.
And what would that savings look like, Cedric? Would it be investments? Would it be stocks? Would it be stuff? A lot of people have pension through work, employment pension. What would that savings look like in a practical sense?
Okay. So that's another very good question. And you mentioned, for example, pension through work. Gone are the days when an individual could retire and be comfortable with their pensions, right? Pensions that back then and pensions now, two different things. And a lot of people have pensions, but they don't necessarily understand exactly how pensions work. 40, 50 years ago, we mostly had what you call a defined benefit pension plan, which an individual was sure of what they would get, in that pension. When they retired, they're sure of what they would be getting each year. Now, many companies don't necessarily offer a pension plan, and those that do, the majority offer now what you call a defined contribution pension plan, which in this case, the employer is helping you to contribute to that pension plan, but it's now left up to you. You now have to decide where that money goes, and how much you ultimately have in retirement is dependent on the growth or the lack thereof. All right?
Okay.
Now, oftentimes this is just simply not enough. We speak
Very
about
tough.
savings, and you mentioned investments just now. Where do we invest that money?
Right.
That's a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when I recommend investment options, it has to be in line with the risk appetite of
For
the
the
client
individual.
themselves,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Some persons are more risk averse, some persons are, more
Yeah.
liberal when it comes to taking risks. So those are things that I have to take into consideration. I will say this though, your money must at least be outpacing inflation, right? Because
Okay.
every year inflation eats away at the purchasing dollar, the purchasing power rather of your money. So if you have $10,000 now, in 10 years' time, you leave that 10,000 in a savings account. The average interest rate in a savings account, by the way, guys, in Canada is 0.2%.
Yeah,
That's the
you're not going to
average.
make any money from it.
You're not making any money. Ask yourself this: if I leave this money in a savings account, in 10 years' time, will it be able to purchase what I'm able to purchase today? The
Absolutely
answer is
not.
no.
No.
Exactly. So you need to have your money growing. You need to have your money outpacing inflation.
Right.
And that's one of the conversations that I have with individuals. So whichever investment options I might direct them to, at the end of the day, the end goal, it's a case-by-case basis, but the end goal is to outpace inflation.
So, I wanted to go back to something Shan touched on earlier, Cedric, and that's debt, which is a really big thing for a lot of people because,
Yeah,
when you live in this country, you practically can't get anywhere without acquiring some form of debt. So, I
absolutely.
wanted you to talk to us about debt management and, some of the things, practical things that people can do to avoid being overwhelmed by it, or if you find yourself at this point having a lot of debt, like what are some of the things that you could be looking at to move yourself out of that situation?
Okay. First, let's talk about how not to get yourself too deep in debt, right? Uh, Credit cards, not the only source, but I want to say one of, if not the major one. By the way, you'll hear me spewing out some statistics. Canadians owe 151% of what they earn.
Mm,
No, sir.
that's a big
That's
number.
alarming.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm.
151% of what they earn. That's what Canadians owe. Now, that being said, a lot of these things aren't taught in schools, unfortunately. We find teenagers, late teens, early 20s getting credit cards, not knowing how to use it. You have a credit card with a $5,000 limit, you think you have $5,000. No, you don't. If you have a credit card with a $5,000 limit and you have 5,000 in your checking or your savings, you have $5,000, right? Some of the simple methods that I say to my clients, hey, to keep yourself in check, you don't need to wait until the end of the billing period when that statement is generated to pay your credit card debt.
Mhm. Because then you
A
have
good way,
interest.
The interest, yeah.
exactly. So a good way to keep yourself in check is you spend today, pay today. It's fine. You might be using your credit card to get cash back or to earn air miles or whatever the case is, and that's absolutely fine, right? I'm going off tangent a bit, but even as it relates to maintaining good credit, ideally, you shouldn't be using more than 30% of your available credit each month. So
Right.
to keep it very simple, if you have $1,000 limit, then
Yeah.
ideally you shouldn't be using more than $300.
Right.
$300,
Right.
yeah.
So you might say, but that's unrealistic. Hey, guess what? Even if cumulatively you spend more than that thousand or close to that thousand for the month, nothing prevents you from paying some of that money early.
Right.
Okay, so that's one. Two, try to clear your balance every single month. So no monies are being brought forward because that's where the interest charges come in.
Right.
So if you spend 500, if you spend 1,500, you want to be in a position to be paying that every month and not bringing a balance. Your overall debt that you have, you shouldn't be spending more than 20% of your salary each month to service debt.
Right.
So if you find yourself in a position where, half of your salary,
It's going towards
two-thirds of
debt.
your salary is going
Yeah.
towards debt, then
That's a problem.
There's a problem.
that's a problem right there. All right. If you find that you're only able to make minimum payments, when I do a budget every single time with a client, if my client says to me, oh, when I ask how much do you pay on that credit card, and they give me a number and say, yeah, that's a minimum, you're doing yourself an injustice.
Right.
Yeah.
I mentioned that the average interest rate in a savings account is 0.2%. Well, guess what? Credit card interest rate starts at around 20%.
20. I know. I was
Exactly, them
about to
wicked.
say.
Yes.
So any unpaid balance every single month, that's growing. Any unpaid balance with a credit card that has a 20% interest rate, the unpaid balance doubles every 3.6 years.
Right.
Mercy.
Yeah.
Right? So these are some of the things to look at. Don't make minimum payments, don't carry a balance, don't spend more than you need to, don't spend on things that you don't need. Your credit card also in the whole debt management conversation, your credit card really should not be for emergency. You ought to have emergency funds set aside. That's one of the number one reasons why people end up in debt. Something happens, there's no money to deal with it. You have no alternative but to go and tap your credit card. Having emergency funds in place is very important, because if you did, then you would need to run up your credit card in the event of whatever might happen.
Yeah.
So,
And it's interesting you said that about the emergency fund, Cedric, because growing up, my aunt and uncle would always tell me, have at least 2 months rent or mortgage in the bank. In the event that something should happen, have at least 2 to 3 months rent or mortgage put aside in the bank as emergency fund.
Rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months. I like to implore my clients to have at least a year's
3 to 6
income.
months.
3 to 6 months is a rule of thumb, right? I do have clients who are drowning in debt, who have significant, when you look at whatever their income is, there are different strategies that again, it will be a case-by-case basis.
Right.
There are different strategies that I employ. Sometimes I have to sit them down and look at, different options as it relates to debt consolidation, possibly a consumer proposal, which a lot of people don't necessarily understand. So I have to take the time out to explain to them the pros and the cons, rather than having to go and file for bankruptcy. So these are some of the things, but every conversation, though, will have to be specific to that individual and based on their specific situation.
Yeah,
Definitely.
very unique.
These are some good tips, Cedric, and I know that a lot of people would definitely benefit from speaking to you, even thinking about the budget, as you said, right? And putting money aside and the savings part, I'm really thinking about that, and what you just said in terms of don't save after, save before. I think that is something that's going to stay with me for today, right? So I definitely think a lot of people could benefit from your services and what you provide. And it seems as if you do like a holistic thing. It's not just one thing.
No, that's correct. When I sit with a client, because I operate as a broker-dealer, so I actually partner with over 50 of the top financial companies in Canada. It really comes down to, what that individual is in need of. One of the very first things that I do when I sit with a client is that I try to ascertain what their financial goals are. And naturally, you can expect that will vary from person to person. Some people want to save for their children's education. Some people want to buy a new home. Some people are in debt and want to get out of debt. Some people want to plan for retirement. Some persons, I sat with a gentleman today, he's 73. He's already retired. Yes. And while he has some retirement funds there and he's getting money monthly, but he wants to know that this money will be able to last him throughout his lifetime.
That makes sense.
Definitely. He also owns a house. He wants to know, the most tax efficient way to ensure that his children are able to inherit his assets without paying a bunch of taxes to the government upon death, and nothing is left for them. So estate planning is one of the things that get left out in many wealth building conversations. People tend to focus on just building wealth and not preserving and protecting, so these are some of the areas also that I help individuals with: income protection and income replacement.
Okay, so you do talk about life insurance and stuff as well too?
Most definitely. That's very important also. A question I like to ask people is, okay, What percentage of your budget do you use every month? Of your income, rather, do you use every month? 60, 70, 80, 90% of my income, 95% of my income. Okay, what will you do if that income is lost?
Right. Very valid
So
question that I don't think we
Real
exactly.
think
talk.
about very often.
Yeah, real
If you're
talk.
not able to go to work, how will you continue to live? So
Yeah.
it's not just life insurance, but I mean, disability, critical illness, things like these.
Mhm.
It's left out of the conversation, but what I find is that many individuals they have a preconceived notion of what these products offer, and you will hear, all kind of stuff. It's a scam, it's a ripoff, and all of that. But when you
Mhm.
don't understand, so for me, I like to just be in a position to sit with an individual, help them to put things into perspective, and very importantly, to show them exactly how a product works. Because most
Mhm.
times, what a product offers versus what they think it offers are far
It's
in
not the
between.
same.
Different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, it was so good to talk to you today, Cedric. I want to really
Yes.
express appreciation for you taking the time out of your very busy schedule to talk to us. And the last thing I want you to do is just to tell people how they could reach you, because, like I
Mhm.
said at the very beginning, I personally know, of your services and have dealt with you. So I think it will be very valuable if people hearing this would want to reach out to you to get a conversation going. How would they be able to do that?
Okay, well, you can call or text me 647-575-7785. I'm not very active on social media. That I definitely need to change. But one of the reasons for that, though, is that because of the licenses that I hold
Right.
and compliance as well, I have to remain compliant. So, not that I cannot be on social media, I definitely can be, but there are a few restrictions here and there. So,
Yeah.
sometimes the hassle. But definitely 647-575-7785. Feel free to reach out to me for a free financial consultation. I always say to people, like, think about the last time you went to the doctor, right? We get an annual checkup and stuff like that. When was the last time that you got a wealth check?
Mm, like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is good. I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. And I know you mentioned the free financial consultation. Do you charge a fee as well too for your clients to work with you?
No. So as a broker dealer, how I operate, I do not charge my clients. No,
Okay.
let's say I meet with an individual. Okay, we're going to ascertain what your needs are. Then
Mm-hmm.
know whatever companies that I partner with,
Okay.
then I get paid directly by those companies. Again, depending on what your needs are. But when I meet with a client, there's never any obligation. And the approach that I take is to really educate first,
Yeah.
Yes.
right? Because even when we talk about investments, a lot of clients don't understand taxation and how taxes will affect the growth in your investments. So I
Mm.
like to take an approach where I just teach. I educate and I allow that client now to be in a position to make an informed decision rather than
Mm.
just me willy-nilly making a decision for them. But no, I don't
Okay.
charge.
Wonderful.
Okay. Okay. That's awesome.
So thank you so much, fam. You
Thank you
heard
so
it
much,
here.
Cedric.
Yes, yes.
It was my pleasure and thank you for having me. I hope I was able to
Wonderful.
bring some value.
Trust me, I
Absolutely.
am walking away with something today too. I'm loving the fact that we need to spend what's left, right?
Yeah.
I love
Yeah, you
that.
save
That
Indeed,
just
first.
really
You
put
indeed.
save
it into
first.
perspective for me today. So thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
So fam, as usual, we invite you to find all our other episodes on Spreaker, on Spotify, on Facebook, on YouTube. All the episodes are there. And share the information. Share it with a friend, share it with family, and drop us a comment. Let us know what about this episode today was valuable for you. What set off a light bulb for you today? And what do you think that you can do to put yourself on a better financial course moving forward? The contact information for Cedric will be found in the description box for this episode. So we invite you to take a look there and reach out if you need that wealth check. Until next time, fam, you take care and walk good.
Bye, fam.
Don't forget to visit Shan and Tam on all their social media websites. At Sisters Shan and Tam on Instagram, Shan Tam Lodge-Lee on Facebook, and check out their blogs at shanandtam.blogspot.com. Tune in again next time on Real Talk.